and not 19. Dark eyes, long eyelashes, ripe and ruddy lips that to look at is to long to kiss, beautiful clustering hair that one's fingers itch to play with, such a waist as might make a man clasp the air involuntarily, thinking of twining his arm about it, little feet that tread so lightly they hardly seem to walk upon the ground. To marry all this, sir, this, hey, hey. "This is something more than common drivelling," said Ralph, after listening with a curled lip to the old sinner's raptures. "The girl's name?" "Oh, deep, deep. See now how deep that is," exclaimed old Arthur. "He knows I want his help. He knows he can give it to me. He knows it must all turn to his advantage. He sees the thing already. Her name. Is there nobody within hearing?" "Why, who the devil should there be?" retorted Ralph testily. "I didn't know but that perhaps somebody might be passing up or down the stairs," said Arthur Gride, after looking out at the door and carefully reclosing it. "Or that your man might have come back and might have been listening outside. Clerks and servants have a trick of listening, and I should have been very uncomfortable if Mr. Noggs—" "Curse Mr. Noggs," said Ralph sharply, "and go on with what you have to say." "Curse Mr. Noggs by all means," rejoined old Arthur. "I'm sure I have not the least objection to that. Her name is—" "Well?" said Ralph, rendered very irritable by old Arthur's pausing again. "What is it?" "Madeline Bray." Whatever reasons there might have been, and Arthur Gride appeared to have anticipated some, for the mention of this name producing an effect upon Ralph, or whatever effect it really did produce upon him, he permitted none to manifest itself, but calmly repeated the name several times, as if reflecting when and where he had heard it before. "Bray," said Ralph. "Bray. There was a young Bray of— No, he never had a daughter." "You remember Bray?" rejoined Arthur Gride. "No," said Ralph, looking vacantly at him. "Not Walter Bray, the dashing man who used his handsome wife so ill?" "If you seek to recall any particular dashing man to my recollection by such a trait as that," said Ralph, shrugging his shoulders, "I shall confound him within 9/10 of the dashing men I have ever known." "Tut, tut, that Bray who's now in the rules of the bench," said old Arthur. "You can't have forgotten Bray. Both of us did business with him. Why, he owes you money." "Oh, him!" rejoined Ralph. "Aye, aye, now you speak. Oh, it's his daughter, is it?" Naturally as this was said, it was not said so naturally but that a kindred spirit like old Arthur Gride might have discerned a design upon the part of Ralph to lead him on to much more explicit statements and explanations than he would have volunteered, or that Ralph could in all likelihood have obtained by any other means. Old Arthur, however, was so intent upon his own designs that he suffered himself to be overreached, and had no suspicion but that his old friend was in earnest. "I knew you couldn't forget him when you came to think for a moment," he said. "You were right," answered Ralph. "But old Arthur Gride and matrimony is the most anomalous conjunction of words. Old Arthur Gride and dark eyes and eyelashes, and lips that to look at is to long to kiss, and clustering hair that he wants to play with, and waists that he wants to span, and little feet that don't tread upon anything. Old Arthur Gride and such things as these is more monstrous still, but old Arthur Gride marrying the daughter of a ruined dashing man in the rules of the bench is the most monstrous and incredible of all. Plainly, friend Arthur Gride, if you want any help from me in this business, which of course you do or you would not be here, speak out and to the purpose, and above all don't talk to me of its turning to my advantage, for I know it must turn to yours also, and to a good round tune too, or you would have no finger in such a pie as this." There was enough acerbity and sarcasm not only in the matter of Ralph's speech, but in the tone of voice in which he uttered it, and the looks with which he eked it out, to have fired even the ancient usurer's cold blood, and flushed even his withered cheek. But he gave vent to no demonstration of anger, contenting himself with exclaiming as before, "What a man it is!" and rolling his head from side to side, as if in unrestrained enjoyment of his freedom and drollery. Clearly observing, however, from the expression in Ralph's features that he had best come to the point as speedily as might be, he composed himself for more serious business, and entered upon the pith and marrow of his negotiation. First, he dwelt upon the fact that Madeline Bray was devoted to the support and maintenance, and was a slave to every wish of her only parent, who had no other friend on earth. To which Ralph rejoins that he had heard something of the kind before, and that if she had known a little more of the world, she wouldn't have been such a fool. Secondly, he enlarged upon the character of her father, arguing that even taking it for granted that he loved her in return with the utmost affection of which he was capable, yet he loved himself a great deal better, which Ralph said it was quite unnecessary to say anything more about, as that was very natural and probable enough. And thirdly, old Arthur premised that the girl was a delicate and beautiful creature, and that he had really a hankering to have her for his wife. To this Ralph deigned no other rejoinder than a harsh smile, and a glance at the shrivelled old creature before him, which were, however, sufficiently expressive. "Now," said Gride, "for the little plan I have in my mind to bring this about, because I haven't offered myself even to the father yet. I should have told you, but that you have gathered already. Oh dear, what an edged tool you are." "Don't play with me, then," said Ralph impatiently. "You know the proverb." "A reply always on the tip of his tongue," cried old Arthur, raising his hands and eyes in admiration. "He is always prepared. Oh dear, what a blessing to have such a ready wit, and so much ready money to back it." Then, suddenly changing his tone, he went on. "I have been backwards and forwards to Bray's lodgings several times within the last 6 months. It is just half a year since I first saw this delicate morsel, and oh dear, what a delicate morsel it is! But that is neither here nor there. I am his detaining creditor for £1,700. "You talk as if you were the only detaining creditor," said Ralph, pulling out his pocket-book. "I am another for £975, 4 and 3 pence. "The only other, Mr. Nickleby," said old Arthur, eagerly. "The only other. Nobody else went to the expense of lodging a detainer, trusting to our holding him fast enough, I warrant you. We both fell into the same snare. Oh dear, what a pitfall it was! It almost ruined me, and lent him our money upon bills with only one name besides his own, which to be sure everybody supposed to be a good one, and was as negotiable as money, but which turned out you know how. Just as we should have come upon him, he died insolvent. Ah, it went very nigh to ruin me, that loss did." "Go on with your scheme," said Ralph. "It's of no use raising the cry of our trade just now. There's nobody to hear us." "It's always well to talk that way," returned old Arthur with a chuckle, "whether there's anybody to hear us or not. Practice makes perfect, you know. Now, if I offer myself to Bray as his son-in-law upon one simple condition, that the moment I am fast married he shall be quietly released, and have an allowance to live just other side of the water like a gentleman. He can't live long, for I've asked his doctor, and he declares that his complaint is one of the heart, and it is impossible. And if all the advantages of his condition are properly stated and dwelt upon to him, do you think he could resist me? And if he could not resist me, do you think his daughter could resist him? Shouldn't I have her, Mrs. Arthur Gride, pretty Mrs. Arthur Gride, a titbit, a dainty chick? Shouldn't I have her, Mrs. Arthur Gride, in a week, a month, a day, any time I choose to name?" "Go on," said Ralph, nodding his head deliberately, and speaking in a tone whose studied coldness presented a strange contrast to the rapturous squeak to which his friend had gradually mounted. "Go on. You didn't come here to ask me that." "Oh dear, how you talk!" cried old Arthur, edging himself closer still to Ralph. "Of course I didn't. I didn't pretend I did. I came to ask what you would take from me if I prospered with the father for this debt of yours. 5 shillings in the pound, 6 and 8 pence, 10 shillings. I would go as far as 10 for such a friend as you. We have always been on such good terms, but you won't be so hard upon me as that, I know. Now will you?" "There's something more to be told," said Ralph, as stony and immovable as ever. Yes, there is, but you won't give me time," returned Arthur Gride. "I want a backer in this matter, one who can talk and urge and press a point, which you can do as no man can. I can't do that, for I'm a poor, timid, nervous creature. Now, if you get a good composition for this debt, which